Governors are busy there signing budgets into law. Implementation and impact, of course, is a subject for another day. For now, let's turn our eyes to Nigeria's telecom industry and what has been going on there. I'm sure by now you've gotten a tip of what's going on there, from the request for approval of tariff increase. Well, stakeholders in the industry are asking for market-reflective tariff, to the non-approval from NCC, and talks of how this could affect service that you enjoy, your calls, your data, and all of that. Well, let's have that conversation this morning with the Chief Executive Officer of MTN Nigeria, Mr. Carl Toriola. Mr. Toriola, good morning. Happy New Year to you.
Good morning and Happy New Year. Wishing you all the best in 2025.
Wish you the same. But I wonder if you would say that you are optimistic at this point. But I guess let's first of all start from 2024. In the year 2024, there were, of course, we saw hikes in different sectors, from electricity top on the list, petrol, even though we had a reduction towards the end and all of that. And it seemed that like the telecom sector was left out. And we've had some economists here in our program asking that, so even you, we've seen you in different platforms asking for the survival of telecom. So how would you capture the year 2024 for your industry?
Look, 2024 was a very torrid year for the entire telecoms industry. We're the largest operator, so we were probably able to be a bit more resilient, but it's been very difficult, and very difficult triggered by two primary things. One, the currency devaluation, which happened in a very rapid scale, and two, just inflation in general. What this has done has effectively driven the cost of operation up so significantly, in some instances 2 or 3-fold. And effectively, by the end of the year, we are spending more to keep our networks in operation and running than we are generating in revenue, and that's not sustainable. So 2024, very torrid from a financial results perspective. However, having said that, we believe the federal government, the policymaker, the Honorable Minister, and of course our regulator led by Dr. Aminu Maida, have actually taken a lot of steps to address other issues that will make the industry sustainable. So tough year, lots of challenges, cost running higher than revenue, sustainable questions, but structural changes that have been executed by the regulators and the policymakers and the government of President Asiwaju Bola Tinubu to support the industry.
Yeah, and the term FX losses was a constant almost all through the year. But towards the end of the year, we did see EFM from the CBN, and some people are optimistic. Would you say you see a more stable stance in the area of FX as we begin 2025?
Yes, I mean, the volatility that we saw in 2024, no one expects that in 2025. Certainly stability, there might be some slight devaluation, but the slight devaluation has been a constant over all the years that we've been in operation and since democracy returned to Nigeria. So that's not the issue in itself. The question is the quantum of the devaluation and the volatility, and the ability of businesses, corporates, to adjust their prices to compensate for that. So 2025, from an FX perspective, yes, we are very optimistic, but it doesn't take away the fact that we're still spending more than we're generating in revenue. So the tariff uplifts are a necessity for sustainability.
So when you say tariff adjustments, what can you expect? We know we've been talking about this even here on Business Morning for quite a bit. And then everybody would tell you we've seen increase in other areas, so why the telecoms? But I know you've been having conversations with the NCC. We've seen that, but even recently the NCC still came out to say they have not approved any increase. Tell us what's going on, conversations around this tariff adjustment.
So we at MTN, we believe that we need a tariff adjustment of about 100%. I think the industry is pretty much aligned because we're all experiencing exactly the same headwinds. Now, the government is very sensitive to the squeezed consumer wallet, the pressures that has come from inflation and currency devaluation on consumers. So I'm not sure they'll give us the 100%. But I'm optimistic they will give us something substantial, and maybe progressively over the course of the year we can have smaller adjustments that will help us to get back to the place where we need to be. The other reality around tariffs, I think you mentioned it in your introduction. I mean, we've seen every single industry. The airline industry locally in Nigeria has increased tariffs by about 400%. We know that Band A on the public mains power has gone up by 341%. We all know the price of petrol post-devaluation, where it's gone up 4, 5, 6-fold. And the other fact of the matter is actually, if you look at all the studies, studies by Statistica, the GSMA, all the bodies who look into the statistics of the telecoms industry, Nigeria actually has probably the second or third lowest tariffs in the world on data and also on voice. So we think there's a very, very strong case for this.
So you do think that with an increase in tariff, the issue of sustainability or the question of sustainability in the telecoms industry would have been answered?
Yes, I mean, look, like I said, 2024, a lot of the other issues around sustainability of the industry were very successfully addressed by a policymaker, Dr. Bosun Tijani, and our regulator, Dr. Aminu Meda. And some of those are the issue of interconnect debt towards of debt as a whole towards the telecoms industry, whether it's interconnect debt, debt for USSD services, etc. Those were very successfully addressed in 2024. Critical National Infrastructure Bill, that's been a long time in the waiting, probably 8 to 9 years. That has been passed through. There are issues around spectrum allocation. The governance, the supervision of the telecoms industry has been very, very strong. So with the tariff adjustments, yes, the issue of sustainability will be addressed. But what is expected of us by the regulator on the flip side is quality of service. We're going to be held to very high standards of quality of service. And what the tariff adjustments allows us to do is to continue to reinvest, because we need to build capacity, build resilience, put in additional generators, put in alternative power supply systems to give you stable and high quality networks. So it addresses sustainability, but also enables the regulator to hold the big stick on the issue of quality of service and allows us consequently to, of course, invest to give the quality of service that Nigerians deserve.
There was a report out there that if you don't get this increase, there might be disruption of services. So, I mean,
what I've tried to do is paint a realistic picture without being alarmist. The truth is, if you have any organization that's spending 160% of what they earn in revenue, effectively at some point in time, that organization is going to shut down. So we're always going to act responsibly. We use all our resources. We're running on fumes to keep our networks up, and we are keeping our networks up. We are not shutting down any networks by any means at this point in time. And we'll continue to do so because we believe that sooner or later the sustainability should be addressed. But like I said, if you're spending 160% of what you're earning, at some point in time, you cannot continue to operate. So that's a risk that faces us in the future.
The truth is, I don't think any economy can, move to a next level without the telecoms. It's the core of every development. Perhaps that's why the government agency is reluctant to, approve this increase, because perhaps we could lose out some subscribers, especially those in the lower class. And I mean, we all know what has happened to the value of Naira and purchasing power. Is there any way to cater for those who are really down there? Perhaps there may be some packages that, even if there was an increase, could still, give them the minimum of access, even if 100%, for instance, what you're asking for is being approved.
And I think that's a lot of the models that our regulator has been looking at, that how can this be absorbed, particularly at the bottom of the pyramid, in the easiest means possible. So we're looking at that. There's also other initiatives by the government to really accelerate rural coverage and effectively subsidize with government resources rural coverage to ensure that people at the bottom of the pyramid have access to telecommunication services. There's also the initiative by Dr. Bosun Tijani to roll out 90,000 kilometers of fiber I think that's going to drive broadband penetration. And I'm sure the focus is going to be on the underserved and the people at the bottom of the pyramid. And I think it's this sensitivity towards the people at the bottom of the pyramid that has really made the regulators and the government really reflect on the best way to come through with this tariff adjustments and what else can they do to support the industry to at least ensure that the tariff adjustment isn't of the quantity that causes them that much pain. And to be honest, we're asking for 100%. I'm not sure we're going to get 100%. But to be honest, that 100% is a lot less than any of the other industries that operate in Nigeria. And, you know, often people look at large corporates and think they want so many price increases. But like I've always said, if you are buying a basket of tomatoes, a bunch of plantain, tubers of yam, the prices have gone up 200, 300, 400%. These are locally produced items. So 100% request is not that unreasonable. But look, anything that we get from the federal government, we'll make the best of it and continue our appeal. But you're right, the telecoms industry underpins everything in this economy, almost everything. The banking services ride on us. A lot of transportation reliance. You can imagine all the Ubers and so on and so forth. A lot of the large corporates that provide all sorts of services rise on the telecoms industry. It's become so essential to life that this is an industry that must absolutely be protected at all costs and allowed to prosper. On top of that, the telecoms industry contributes, I'm not sure the latest statistics, but the last I knew of was 14% to the GDP. So if this is allowed to thrive and prosper, it will have multiple spin-off effects on the rest of the economy as well. So
apart from this tariff increase that you're asking for, are there other ways, perhaps, that you think the industry could be helped for sustainability? Because, I mean, we all know the importance of it. If we must grow our digital economy and, you know, even grow the economy at all.
No, absolutely. And there are multiple ways in which the industry must be supported. But I think that's why I said 2024 was a time when we did a lot of the things to support the industry. And those have been explored to the fullest. We're now left with one last thing to do, which is an absolute necessity, and that's tariff increase. And I'll talk through some of the things that's been done. I think I mentioned them earlier. Addressing the industry debt across the industry, towards the industry, is one of them. The Critical National Infrastructure Bill is another. There was an auction of 5G spectrum that happened 2 years ago or so. That gave us additional spectrum for us to provide services and relieve our 4G networks. That's been successful. Our regulator has rearranged spectrum. I don't want to get too technical, but that's something that's very important to allow operators to have contiguous spectrum and allows them to improve their quality of services. The Critical National Infrastructure Bill is a big one that we've been waiting for ages. We've gotten a lot of support from the security agencies because we've had a lot of sabotage, willful damage to our infrastructure, as well as accidental damage. So we've gotten the intervention of various arms of government to prevent that. And yes, I mean, there's been all sorts of initiatives that have supported us. And they've been very, very good, very important for the industry, very exciting for us, the telecoms operators in the industry. But we still do need this tariff increase because, like I said, you cannot be spending 1.6 times what you're earning and survive. So, yes.
Yeah, so you said you have a lot of cooperation from the security agents or agencies. So the threats to your assets, are they over? Or at least minimal?
Yeah, we are addressing the threats to our assets. The root cause of the threats to our assets, the root players in vandalism and theft, and the security agencies are helping to root them out. They're actively engaging, now understanding what the critical aspects and elements of our infrastructure is. If there's any threat, we feel the presence of the security agencies. They are physically on site to protect the critical assets. We have 18,000 base stations across the country. They can't protect everything, but the ones that are most critical and carry the majority of the traffic, they're always present. And of course, they have a lot of intelligence to know what's coming. So they've been very constructive in working with us to prevent any disruptions. And then where there is like willful sabotage and damage, fish out the perpetrators and hold them to task on this.
And talking about security, a lot of when we started the BVN and NIN and all of that registration, there was a lot of expectation, that at the core of it, we will have technology, telecoms help us. How much cooperation goes on between, the telecoms and the security? I mean, we heard last year, kidnapping has become an industry that a lot of people look out to and all of that. How much cooperation goes on in the area of fighting insecurity in the country?
Look, security is always the most sensitive subject under any government, so I'll keep my words somewhat limited. Allow me to say that every SIM card in Nigeria is now associated with a national identity number. And that national identity number also includes the biometrics of the individual. So the history of SIM registration, SIM suspensions, that's over and done with. That enables the security agencies to identify the people who are responsible for whatever they might be investigating. And we provide them with all the support under the laws of the country. So we follow the laws and the regulations of the country to the letter. And within that context, we provide all the support that is required. I don't think, coming from the private sector, I'm in a place to really speak to it much more than that. But we're very cooperative with the state, following the regulations and the laws of the country to provide all the support. But kidnapping didn't start in the last 1-2 years. It's something that's been gradually increasing. And I think, look, over time, as we've moved towards free market policies, and we start to see the positive impact of that, and it's not overnight. I think what will happen is the economic activity will increase in Nigeria, giving people alternatives to generate a living, and that is what ultimately will drive down crime. But let me leave it at that.
All right, so finally now, I don't think you put you in a tight spot and all of that. The issue of 4G and 5G, sometimes, when Nigerians hear, oh, we now have 5G, and they're like, oh, have we even exhausted the 3G, and then we're going to 4G and 5G? Where are we in that? And really, how many people have access to these new levels, I think it's spectrums and all of that? We're talking of 5G now.
So we're very proud of our 5G achievements. We are in the first world in telecoms in Nigeria. And I think this industry, the telecoms industry, is probably, that's maybe the banking industry, are the two industries that are at par with the global best standards across the world. And our 5G quality is very good. Now, 5G, you don't roll out ubiquitously across the nation at once because you don't actually have that many handsets outside of the major urban areas. We have, I think, 10 times the coverage and capacity of our closest competitor when it comes to 5G. Focused on, first of all, geopolitical zones, second, the state capitals, and focused on where the terminals are present. And the opportunity exists for home broadband solutions on 5G. Now, if you test our 5G network, at the very best instances, you'll get up to 1 gigabits per second speed. You probably get somewhere between 300 megabits per second and 600 megabits per second on average where you have our 5G coverage. And that is the best standards. I think we got the Umlaut, UCLA, and UCLA awards for the fastest 5G network in Africa, if I remember right. Now, how many people have access to it? We provide somewhere around 15% population coverage. That's focused on the commercial centers and where the opportunity exists for home broadband. What does it bring you? It brings you much faster speed, much lower latencies. If you have teenage kids that are gamers, they will know the difference, I promise you, with 5G. And then if you're using it for things like e-health, Internet of Things, etc., you will see the value of 5G, and you get a lot better home broadband connection. And 5G is rolled out almost the same way that the GSM networks were rolled out. We didn't all of a sudden wake up and roll out GSM in 2001 across the country. We started by the commercial centers, the state capitals, and then it started to progress outwards. So you see a progression of our 5G coverage as the traffic increases, as the penetration of 5G handsets increases in the country. You'll see an acceleration of 5G. And it will provide a much better connection. And we are actually very pleased about the performance of our 5G network and the uptake of 5G traffic on our network. We're very optimistic. We've seen really good traction. I won't get into the statistics on that because my competitors will surely be listening in, but we're very satisfied. 4G is not exhausted. 4G still provides very good data quality services. Not as good as 5G, but you get 20 and up to 130, 140 megabits per second on 4G. And we have now plotted in on 90% population coverage on 4G. So that's also really good internet broadband solution as well.
Yeah, but all of this, Mr. Toriola, are you optimistic about 2025?
Yes, I am. I think this tariff issue is going to be resolved. I can't tell you when. I can't tell you exactly how much the government will authorize. Make no mistake, this is our request and our demand. It's taken a while because the government is very sensitive to the plight and looking for every other solution to put in place. But I think it's going to be resolved in the near term. And I think we're not going to see the volatility that we saw in foreign exchange rates. We're back to stability. So I think 2025 is going to be a good year. We in MTN are also on the march to become the undisputable largest fiber to the home operator. I'm very excited about that. Our fintech services are gaining traction, very competitive market in fintech in Nigeria. But we think we have some unique offerings that's going to make us really interesting to the consumer. So yes, I think 2025 is going to be much better than 24. 24 was a reset year. A lot of things we had to fix, and we've done that, and we're going to be flying in 25.
Yeah, we do hope to fly, all of us together, Mr. Toriola. Thank you so much, Mr. Carl Toriola, Chief Executive Officer of MTN Nigeria.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on your program.
You're welcome. So that's it there. The telecoms are also asking for their share. They need to be sustained, to stay alive and keep the operations on. Just before we head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio, just to tell you that the NGX, of course, is back and is back on a winning trend. Yesterday closed up 0.25% at 103,180.73 there, and the equity is now at 62.899 trillion. Hopefully we'll get to 63 today. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But it's a positive market. We're opening with the Ghana Stock Exchange beat us last year, but we will not take it in 2025. So we're going to start the year glowing until the end of it. So I'll be back at 1 p.m. for Business Incorporated. Will be here with the intraday numbers. We'll have 55 minutes to do business together. So join me then. But now let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.